So this is my second attempt at making the basic intro tutorial for site modeling. The first one was like bad even by my standards, so I'm going to try again. And we're going to be covering the shape merge uh, compound feature in Max, which is where I like to start usually for doing flat sites and even sites that have like elevation change if we're seeing them from a distance and we don't have to like cut in a lot of transitions at curb and gutter and stuff like that. And I'll cover that a little bit later on in the next tutorial. So what I've drawn here, just a couple of shapes and polygons. This is just a plane. And then I've drawn in a few shapes to represent like an island or maybe a site pad, and then as well as some additional shapes that could be cuts on the site, I guess. And I've applied the shape merge modifier to this plane, and we can just start picking these objects, and you can see how they get projected down onto the plane. There are limitations with the shape merge, and I don't know if they changed the math or if it's just my imagination, but I seem to remember this working in previous versions of Max, but for some reason it's not working now. But if we extend the vertice of the splines outside of the geometry, then the shape merge won't work. Um, if you have an explanation for that, let me know. But you can see it just fails. So as long as this is contained, then the shape merge will work. But I don't really want that. I just wanted to demonstrate that overhanging little hiccup there. So these can be attached or they can be detached. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to focus on one shape for now so that we can get through the tutorial kind of fast. But if we're calling this a site pad, which I am, then we can go ahead and add it to the shape merge and it projects down onto the geometry. At this point, if your camera is really far away, maybe that's all you need. Maybe you just want to change a material ID and this can be concrete and this can be grass or road or whatever. Uh, Simple enough. Getting a little bit more complex, if you have a site that isn't flat, you can still use a shape merge and all the same principles will apply. So I've already created some stuff. Let me delete it. Um, it looks like I've already done a shape merge. So let me just do this so I can illustrate what I did. This is the problem with tutorials. If you don't have your act together, it gets out of hand. So I'm drawing a new plane and just give this guy some noise. Okay, so we'll just say this is some flavor of an elevated site. Maybe it's a topo, I don't know, but good enough for the tutorial. And the shape merge will work the same on these types of sites with changes to the elevation as they do on a flat site. So just go to your Create tab, Compound Objects, Shape Merge, Pick Shape, and you can see it projects it down onto that geometry. So now if we put an Edit Poly modifier on this and go into our sub-object selections, I just hit 4 to grab up the polygon selection. What's nice about it is it automatically loads in that selection. If this circle had been added to the shape merge or if it was attached at the same time, the same result would still apply. And that's actually quite a nice feature to have because you don't have to go in and try to make this really complex selection. So again, if the camera is really far away and you don't need any additional detail, that's probably fine. But if you're going to be up a little closer and you want to do some curb and gutter or something, then what you can do is just leave this as is and just drag a copy of those polygons up and clone them as an object. And now you can just extract your curb and gutter from this newly made object just by using the border selection. So this thing only has one border, but now you've got the border selected and you can create a shape, make it linear, and now you're you're ready to go. You can do this in a number of ways. If you only want a simple curb and gutter that's without the gutter, the curb without the gutter, then you can just make this spline renderable. Maybe you want to chamfer it, so it uh, has a little bit of softness, or use a round edge shader, however you desire to do that. Or if you want a little bit more detail, you can apply a sweep or a loft. We'll do a sweep in this case because it's a little quicker to do. We'll sweep it and just use a custom selection, and I'll just pick from this thing that I've already drawn over here, which is this curb and gutter shape. So if you've never done these compound operations like a sweep or a loft, or um, a lathe would work the same way. This line is referencing this shape as an instance of it. So if you make a subobject change to this, it's going to influence this. For example, if I move this up and down in space or around, it has no bearing, it has no effect on this newly made object unless I'm in subobject mode. If I'm in subobject mode and I move it around, everything's going to change and update. Another thing that you'll notice when you're using your lofts and your sweeps is sometimes the polarity of this thing gets flipped. So that's really simple to fix. I'll illustrate that in a second. Let me just show you what I mean here about subobject changes. Here, like at the gutter, if I were to move this out, then this is going to grow. So that's a handy feature to have. The other thing that I wanted to illustrate is, again, that kind of flipping that can happen. So these guys have a sweep modifier, and they're just splines that have all been attached. And again, the sweep is referencing this shape over here. And it looks like they're all pointing out the right direction, but let's take one and reverse it and show the end result. So now you can see that the gutter's on the wrong side. It's facing the wrong direction. This is going to happen to you eventually when you're using sweep commands. It's really easy to fix, even if you have multiple lines that you've attached. You can just select the spline mode and reverse it to fix it. And you can do that at the sub-object level, or if it's just one, you can just select it and click on that reverse from the right-click menu. All right, so the benefit of doing things this way is that you already have your site is already drawn for you from the shape merge. All you have to do is just pull it up because you've copied it from that base mesh. And this is basically what I do whenever I'm making sites. Is unless I have to like get right on top of something, this is usually good enough. Yeah, so that's a lot shorter than the previous version of this tutorial that really sucked.